Thank you all for joining us. We're just giving everybody a minute to get in. Please note there will be, this is being recorded, there will be a link on our Educator Effectiveness website. It'll be up in anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks after it's gone through compliance and accessibility approval.
Once we hit a steady number of participants, we'll go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and get started. Thumbs up. Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the presentation of the Educator Effectiveness Funds, or EEF 2021 Block Grant Program. This technical assistance webinar is provided by the Educator Excellence and Equity Division and School Fiscal Services Division at the California Department of Education, or CDE. My name is Cheryl Cotton. I am the Deputy Superintendent of Instruction, Measurement, and Administration Branch at the California Department of Education. I want to introduce you to the EEF 2021 team. The EEF program team consists of myself, Kristen Cruz-Allen, and Education Administrator 1, Alexis Clift, an Education Programs Consultant, and Angie Ford, an Education Programs Consultant from the Teacher and Leader Policy Office in the Educator Excellence and Equity Division at the CDE. The EEF fiscal team consists of Keith Smith, the Education Fiscal Services Administrator 1, and Julie Klein-Briggs, an Education Fiscal Services Consultant for the School Fiscal Services Division. In addition, we have a special guest with us today, Dr. Travis Bristol. At this time, all webinar participants have been placed on mute. Also, please remember that this webinar is being recorded. Please try to hold your questions until the end of the webinar. The presentation will address many of your questions. The question and answer session will occur toward the end of the webinar. At that time, please submit your questions in the question and answer box. Please note, in order to be compliant with 508 requirements, you will notice that CDE staff will need to fully read out website addresses. This PowerPoint with the notes and the recorded webinar will be available on the CDE EEF 2021 program home webpage at https://www.cde.ca.gov/PD/EEF2021.ASP. The EEF 2001 Block Grant Program was established by Assembly Bill 130, Chapter 44, Section 22, Statutes of 2021. The law specified that EEF may be used to support professional learning for certificated teachers, administrators, paraprofessional educators, and certificated staff. First, I want to thank everyone for taking time out of your busy day to join us. The Educator Effectiveness Funds Block Grant represents an unprecedented investment in California's educator workforce. The Educator Effectiveness Funds, or EEF, 2001 Block Grant Program were included in the 2021 state budget. This program provides $1.5 billion for county offices of education, school districts, charter schools, and state special schools to provide professional learning for certificated teachers, administrators, paraprofessional educators, and certificated staff in order to promote educator equity, quality, and effectiveness. There are 10 allowable uses of these funds that staff will discuss later in this webinar. As I said, I'm here to discuss one allowable use of these funds, which is diversifying the teacher workforce. Educator Effectiveness Funds can be used for professional learning to support diversifying the teacher workforce. Research shows teachers of color boost the academic performance of students of color. Moreover, diversity in the teacher workforce has been shown to benefit not just students of color, but all students. This focus area aligns with the allowable uses of funds in areas 1 through 5 specifically, 1 and 5 specifically, that staff will discuss later in the webinar. I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Travis Bristol of the University of California, Berkeley, to share more with you around research in this field. Dr. Bristol led an important CDE advisory board this past year to study and make recommendations about diversifying California's teacher workforce. He also serves as chairman of the National Board of Professional Teaching Standards Board of Directors. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Dr. Bristol. Please take it away.
Thank you, Deputy Superintendent Cotton, and good afternoon to all of the teachers, educators here in this great state who are doing incredible work for our children. So briefly, I would like to just sort of put and just share some important research that might support your own thinking around this, around the Educator Effectiveness Funds grant. If the goal of this grant is to increase learning for students, which I believe that it is, and in particular, students who have historically underperformed, and here in California, that is and continues to be tragically students of color. So if that is the goal, then it would be important to think about the teachers that research has suggested that are uniquely positioned to increase learning for those students who have historically underperformed. And so what I'd like to just do here briefly is just to share with you some of that research. So here in this paper, I sort of highlight what I've termed the added value of Latinx and Black teachers for Latinx and Black students. And so what you'll see on the next slide, what you'll see is that there is a strong body of research, qualitative research, that points to the added value of Latinx teachers for Latinx students. This research suggests that in early elementary school, Spanish language use is associated with higher levels of emotional support during teacher-student interactions. And this qualitative research is supported by robust quantitative research that finds that Latinx teachers positively influence Latinx students to take more advanced placement in international baccalaureate courses compared with Latinx students in schools with fewer Latinx teachers. This research about the added value for Latinx teachers for Latinx students is also sort of similar to some of the research we see for Black teachers and Black students. So on the next slide, you'll see that there is a convincing body of qualitative research that has found that Black teachers draw on Black students' cultural and linguistic experiences to increase engagement and learning. And this qualitative research is also supported by convincing quantitative research that finds that being assigned a Black teacher leads to improved performance on standardized tests. On the next slide, this recent study that was conducted by my colleagues Matt Sherrill and Talani Britton, we look at 10 years of teacher-student data in the country's largest school district, New York City. New York City has 1.1 million students. And what we found when we looked at 10 years of these data, we found that when Black students were assigned a Black teacher, they were less likely to get suspended. We also found that for Latinx students, when they were assigned a Latinx teacher in grades 4 through 8, they were less likely to get suspended. And we also found for the first time that even for Asian and Asian American students, when they were assigned an Asian or Asian American teacher, that those students were less likely to be suspended. Even white students have more favorable opinions of their teachers of color. And here in this study, researchers looked at a handful of school districts, and they found that white students reported that they looked around and they realized that the individuals who were standing in front of them did not reflect the rich diversity in their school. It's also important to note that, that while we need to think about designing professional learning for teachers of color and the evidence for teachers of color, that we also need to support and train white teachers to help them think about their own biases, and specifically their implicit bias. On the next slide, what you'll see is that, and research continues to point out that teachers do not leave their students, they leave their principals. And so recognizing that a driver for turnover is administrative leadership, when we think about educator effectiveness, we should not have a narrow view of teachers, but we should also be thinking about and how to build the capacity of school building leaders. And here in the Compton Unified School District, this program that over 3 years worked with both administrators and teachers, learning alongside each other, building their capacity to support student learning, and administrators building their own capacity to support teacher learning. And so what I'd like to just briefly do here is that as you are thinking about how to invest grants, this grant funding, I just want to draw your attention to a handful, or maybe 2 handfuls, if you will, of organizations across the country that you may want to consider and potentially partner with as you think about your efforts around supporting educators. So the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards, there's a great deal of evidence around their work to support and increase learning for teachers. NYC Menteach is an initiative in New York City that's aimed at supporting male teachers of color. The Center for Black Educator Development continues to think critically about professional learning for Black teachers. We can just keep on just rolling through them. There is a professional learning community that's currently happening in LA County, led by John Garcia, that some of you might be participating in and may want to tap into as you're thinking about building the capacity of leaders. UC Berkeley and UCLA have investments to build leadership capacity with 21st CSLA. Rita Coley at UC Riverside is doing some incredible work around supporting teachers of color with the Institute for Teachers of Color Committed to Racial Justice. The Black Teacher Project that's operating here in San Francisco and Oakland might be something that you may want to consider. The diversity and leadership work that's happening specifically in Southern California. The Leadership Academy, Profound Gentlemen, Latinos for Education are specifically thinking about Latino teachers and how to support those teachers. And so here, I believe that some work happening in Tennessee and Teach Plus, that there are a range of organizations that are critically thinking about how to support and to deepen the professional learning for teachers. And so there are, in this moment in the state's history, resources isn't the issue, it's will. And here are some resources that might support you in your work. And I'll just drop into the chat an additional resource that you might use around research, policy, and practice for supporting teachers of color. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bristol, for joining us today and for your partnership on all of these projects. We appreciate it. So the EEF program provides one-time funds to county offices of education, school districts, charter schools, and state special schools to provide professional learning to promote educator equity, quality, and effectiveness. These funds are allocated on the basis of an equal amount per certificated and classified full-time equivalency as reported in the California Longitudinal Pupil Achievement Data System, or CalPADS, and the California Basic Educational Data System, or CBEDS, for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. And I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Keith Smith, to discuss a little bit more about the fiscal end of this project.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Keith Smith. I'm the administrator with the Categorical Allocations and Audit Resolutions Office within the School Fiscal Services Division. My office is responsible for calculating each LEA's allocation and for initiating the payment or apportionment process for LEAs for a number of funding programs, including the Educator Effectiveness Funding Program. So the Educator Effectiveness 2021 fund allocations were calculated using the following elements. We use certificated staff FTE as of October 2020. That's from the CalPADS Fall 2 data collection. And those were not to exceed the certificated count. We also used the classified staff FTE as of October 2020 from the CBEDS data collection. And the funding rate came out to approximately $2,415.80. As you can see on the slide, we provide additional decimal places for accuracy. The LEA allocation is equal to the sum of their certificated and classified FTE multiplied by the funding rate. We can go to the next slide. So the Educator Effectiveness funding allocations for all local educational agencies are available on the Educator Effectiveness Funding Results webpage. This page can be found at https://www.cde.ca.gov/FG/FO/EDE EFFECTIV NESS 21 RESULT.ASP. To view each funding level, please go to the webpage and click on the link to the Excel file, which is under the allocations heading. Next slide. There are two conditions of apportionment for this program. These are conditions that must be met by LEAs, else the funds will be forfeited. The first, California Education Code 41480 D1 states that each LEA must, on or before December 30th, 2021, develop and adopt a plan delineating the expenditure of funds apportioned pursuant to this section, including the professional development of teachers, administrators, paraprofessionals, and classified staff. The plan shall be presented in a public meeting of the governing board of the school district, county board of education, or the governing body of the charter school before its adoption in a subsequent public meeting. I would like to emphasize that the presentation and adoption of the expenditure plan must occur in separate meetings, both of which must occur before December 30th, 2021. Since this is a condition of apportionment, a procedure will be added to the 2021-22 supplemental K-12 audit guide to verify that these conditions are met. LEAs that do not meet these conditions will forfeit funds. One frequently asked question is whether or not the two meetings can occur on the same day. There is nothing in statute that states that the two meetings cannot occur on the same day. However, it is recommended that LEAs consult with legal counsel if there are specific questions related to compliance with public meeting requirements or local procedures, and that all records of compliance are retained in case of an audit. It is also worth noting that there is nothing in statute that prevents an LEA from revising their plan subsequent to the initial approval. Next slide, please. The second condition of apportionment is the final report. Ed Code 41480 D2 states that a final report must be submitted on or before September 30th, 2026. Funds may be expended during the 2021, 22, 22, 23, 2023, 24, 2024, 25, and 2025, 26 school years. Since the submission of the final report is a condition of apportionment, an LEA's failure to submit the final report will result in an audit finding during the 2025-26 annual K-12 audit, and funds will be forfeited. In closing, I'd just like to share that my slides are not the fun part of this presentation. However, the collective hope of everyone presenting today is that by emphasizing these conditions of apportionment and the lessons we've learned from past programs we've administered, our hope is that each of you will be better informed on how to avoid costly audit findings and retain full funding for the benefit of your programs. And now I'd like to hand things back to my colleague, Kristen.
Thank you, Keith. So in addition to the final report, we are also requiring that an annual data and expenditure report is completed by September 30th of each year of the grant program. We are requiring this annual reporting in a response to a request for detailed information for our legislative report at the end of the grant period, to justify future funding opportunities, and to confirm that funding is being appropriately used and tracked at the local level. And my colleagues Alexis and Angie will discuss a bit more about this reporting in their sections. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Alexis now.
Hello. The EEF may be used to support professional learning for certificated teachers, administrators, paraprofessional educators, and certificated staff. Funds can be expended on any of the 10 purposes below. All right, first, professional learning for certificated teachers, administrators, paraprofessional educators, and certificated staff related to, number 1, coaching and mentoring of staff serving in an instructional setting and beginning teacher or administrator induction, including but not limited to coaching and mentoring solutions that address a local need for teachers that can serve all pupil populations with a focus on retaining teachers, and offering structured feedback and coaching systems organized for social emotional learning, including but not limited to promoting teachers' self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship, and responsible decision-making skills, improving teacher attitudes and belief about oneself and others, and supporting learning communities for educators to engage in meaningful classroom and teaching experience. The EEF can also be used to provide mentors and coaches of color and opportunities for teachers of color to connect with experienced teachers through affinity groups. And these are effective methods of retaining teachers of color. It can also be used to train school leaders and to better support educators, particularly educators of color. All right, the next allowable uses of funds, and again, relate to professional learning for certificated teachers, administrators, paraprofessional educators, and certificated staff relating to, number 2, programs that lead to effective standards-aligned instruction and instruction in literacy across all subject areas, including English language arts, history, social science, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and computer science. Number 3.
Oh, Alexis, I do want to encourage LEAs to consider using these funds to support diversifying the workforce for the many reasons shared by Dr. Bristol. So for in the areas that you just shared, it can also be used to train educators in identifying bias and racial trauma to help them understand and cope within themselves and support their students. Thank you.
No problem. Yes, exactly. And number 3, it can be used for professional learning for number 3, practices and strategies that re-engage pupils and lead to accelerated learning. Number 4, a professional learning for strategies to implement social emotional learning, trauma-informed practices, suicide prevention, access to mental health services, and approaches that improve pupil well-being. All right, going on with the allowable uses of funds. Again, it's professional learning for certificated teachers, administrators, paraprofessional educators, and certificated staff related to number 5, practices to create a positive school climate, including but not limited to restorative justice, training around implicit bias, providing positive behavioral supports, multi-tiered system of support, transforming a school site's culture to one that values diverse cultural and ethnic backgrounds, preventing discrimination, harassment, bullying, and intimidation based on actual or perceived characteristics, including disability, gender, gender identity, gender expression, language, nationality, race or ethnicity, religion, or sexual orientation.
I'd like to add that the allowable use of funds can be used to build comprehensive leadership development programs for teachers and administrators that include stipends for professional learning with an equity lens, and coaching. The EEF can support school-wide professional learning that confronts issues around race, social justice, and implicit bias, which are effective methods of retaining teachers of color. LEAs that provide strong professional learning systems have more success in retaining certificated and classified staff.
All right, and also moving on here, professional learning for certificated teachers, administrators, paraprofessional educators, and certificated staff relating to number 6, strategies to improve inclusive practices, including but not limited to universal design for learning, best practices for early identification and development of individualized education programs for students with exceptional needs, instruction and education to support implementing effective language acquisition programs for English learners, which may include integrated language development within and across content areas, and building and strengthening capacity to increase bilingual and biliterate proficiency. Number 8 also includes professional development for new professional learning networks for educators not already engaged in an education-related professional learning network.
Therefore, the EEF can be used to create communities of practice for county offices of education and for local school districts to build their capacity to recruit, support, and retain teachers of color. The EEF can be used to provide stipends or hourly wages for involvement in professional learning networks for participation outside of normal working and salaried hours.
Wonderful. They can also be used for professional development, for learning for certificated teachers, administrators, for paraprofessional educators, and certificated staff related to number 9, instruction, education, and strategies to incorporate ethnic studies curricula adopted pursuant to California Education Code section 51226.1, including instruction for grades 7 to 12 inclusive. Also number 10, for professional learning for instruction, education, and strategies for certificated and classified educators in early childhood education or childhood development.
There are ways in which these funds may be used to support teacher residency programs, as well as other pipelines that move individuals into the teaching profession. Please keep that in mind.
All right. We would also like to remind you that these funds can also be utilized to support transitional kindergarten or the TK initiative. This focus area aligns with the allowable use of funds areas 1 and 10 specifically. So the EEF may be used for professional learning to support expanded TK programs as detailed in Senate Bill 130. The expansion of TK will create more equity in early education and benefit many young Californians. I would now like to hand it over to my colleague Angie Ford to discuss several of the EEF frequently asked questions or FAQs.
Thank you. So hello, we're going to go over now the Educator Effectiveness Block Grant Frequently Asked Questions, or FAQs, portion of it. So the first of the FAQs includes, are there conditions placed on local educational agencies receiving the Educator Effectiveness or EEF funds? The answer is on or before December 30, 2021, the LEA must develop and adopt a plan delineating how the EEF will be spent. The plan must be explained in a public meeting of the governing board of the school district or county board of education,
or governing body of the charter school before its adoption in a subsequent public meeting. Please note that the local plan is subject to an audit. In addition, there are other conditions placed on LEAs receiving the Educator Effectiveness Funds. Are there other conditions? The answer is LEAs must submit an annual data and expenditure report detailing information to the CDE, including specific purchases made and the number of teachers, administrators, paraprofessional educators, or classified staff on or before September 30 of each year. The CDE is requiring annual reporting to help keep LEAs organized and to ensure funding is being appropriately used and tracked at the local level. Okay, the next question, does a recipient of funds have to submit its local plan for the Educator Effectiveness Funds to the California Department of Education? And the answer is no. But the local plan for the Educator Effectiveness Funds needs to be heard in a public meeting of the governing board of the school district, the county board of education, or governing body of the charter school before its adoption in a subsequent public meeting. This must take place on or before December 30th, 2021. Can we go back one? Thank you. So another question we often get is a template available for the plan that the local educational agencies are required to develop and adopt, delineating how the educator effectiveness funds must be spent? And the answer is no. Each LEA should develop its own plan. The CDE is not intending to provide a template for the plan. Each plan should be crafted to meet the specific needs of the LEA. Another question that we get often, can we go back one slide? Thank you. How long do I have to spend the funds? So these are one-time funds, but funds may be expended during the 2021-22, 2022-23, 2023-24, 2024-25, and 2025-26 fiscal years. An annual data and expenditure report will be due each year on or before September 30. A final data and expenditure report will be due on or before September 30, 2026. Any funds not expended by June 30, 2026 must be returned to the CDE. Another question, can funds be spent on paraprofessionals and or classified staff? Yes. A school district, county office of education, charter school, or state special school shall expend funds to provide professional learning for teachers, administrators, paraprofessionals who work with pupils, and classified staff that interact with pupils. Another question that we get, where can I find information on the annual and final data and expenditure reports? Our answer, the CDE will develop templates indicating the data elements required in the annual data reports and in the annual expenditure reports. The CDE is requiring annual reporting as a response to requests for detailed information in the legislative report, to justify future funding opportunities, and to confirm funding is being appropriately used and tracked at the local level. The annual reports are due on or before September 30 of each year. A link to all of these templates can be found in the EEF 2021 home webpage on the CDE website. We will provide that web address near the end of the presentation. Submission of the required reports will be through an online database, and those templates for the expenditure and data reports will be posted soon. They're not currently there, but they will be posted soon. Another question, should a teacher be counted more than once if that teacher received training in more than one core area? And the answer is yes. A teacher should be included in the count for each area in which training was received. The next question, will these funds be subject to a state audit? The answer is yes. The Educator Effectiveness Funds are subject to the annual audits required by Education Code Section 41020. The annual audit guide can be found at http://eaap.ca.gov/. The 2021-22 audit guide currently posted does not include procedures for review of the Educator Effectiveness Funds. The procedures for review of Educator Effectiveness Funds are currently under development and will be posted with the 2021-22 supplemental audit guide in spring 2022. Another question, can Educator Effectiveness Funds be used for student services? The answer is no. These funds are to provide professional learning and instruction to teachers, administrators, paraprofessionals who work with pupils, and classified staff that interact with pupils. I will now hand it back over to Kristen to discuss some important timelines.
Very good. Thank you, Angie. So as you'll see on the slide, between December 2021 and January 2022, CDE plans to release the first apportionment of these funds, approximately 80% of the total funding for each LEA. On or before December 30th, 2021, LEAs must develop and adopt their plan for these funds and presented in 2 separate public meetings, delineating how their Educator Effectiveness Funds will be spent. In spring of 2022, CDE plans on releasing the remaining Educator Effectiveness Funds, which would be approximately the other 20% of funds. And on or before September 30, 2022, LEAs must complete the annual expenditure and data report and submit them to CDE via an online database. Go to the next slide. Very good. You'll see on this slide that there are a number of useful websites. So first we have the EEF, Educator Effectiveness Funds 2021 home program webpage at https://www.cde.ca.gov/pd/EE/EEF 2021.asp. We also have the EEF FAQs webpage that we'll be adding to, because we know we will get a lot of questions during our webinar today that we can send through our legal department and answer that way. So keep an eye out on that webpage, but there's already some existing FAQs, and that's available at https://www.cde.ca.gov/pd/EE/EEF 2021 FAQ.asp. And finally, for fiscal information, we ask that you visit the EEF funding webpage, which also includes the allocation amounts for each LEA at https://www.cde.ca.gov/FG/AA/CA/educatoreffectiveness.asp. And finally, there are a number of questions that are building up in the chat, in the Q&A, that we've been trying to answer as we go along, and staff will take some time to look at those and try and answer them at this time. If we don't get some of them answered, we certainly can follow up. I know one of the big questions was, can we have access to this PowerPoint before 2 weeks from now? And the reason we listed 2 weeks is because we have to prepare it for 508 compliance before we post it. However, we will try to get the slides themselves out to you before that, so that you can review this information if we can't have the actual recording posted before that. So So that will be our goal.